Hello and welcome to Refugee Welcome Collective's Lunch and Learn series. In these sessions, we aim to bring interesting and timely information to you, supporters of refugees. Whether you are a volunteer, community sponsor, resettlement agency staff, a local advocate, or just someone who is interested in learning more, we hope that you enjoy today's session, an app for that, introducing the RWC app. Refugee Welcome Collective collaborates with partners to provide in-depth training programs, weekly learning sessions, resources, and on-demand technical assistance for sponsors, practitioners at resettlement agencies, refugees paired with sponsors, community and institutional partners, and others to support quality community sponsorship programs across the United States. Let's see, next slide. As a reminder for everyone joining the Lunch and Learn today, there is a control panel in the upper right-hand corner of your screen that will allow you to submit questions through the questions box. There will be ample time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. Everyone on today's webinar is automatically muted. However, if you have any tech issues, please raise your hand through the control panel or submit a question in the questions box so we can assist you. Additionally, a recording of today's presentation will be sent to everyone following today's webinar. This brings us to our presenter for today. Our presenter is Derek Feldman, and Derek is the Senior Community Sponsorship Technical Assistance Associate here with the Refugee Welcome Collective. Derek, thanks for telling us about the app.
Thank you, Brianne. Appreciate it. And hi, everyone. It's good to be back sort of on this side of the camera for Lunch and Learn session. I look forward to talking with you all about the Refugee Welcome Collective app. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Thank you. We'll be talking about a number of different things, just kind of walk through a little bit of kind of, our hope for you after you've seen this presentation is that you'll understand the purpose and objective of this Refugee Welcome Collective app / database, and I'll kind of explain what that means. Understand how to create a client in the system if you're a local office user or local resettlement agency staff member. Understand how to create and match a community sponsor group or a volunteer with a client in the system. And then understand how to run reports. And then we're gonna talk about the objectives. We're gonna talk about these different user levels, the local office level, the national office level, the volunteer level. We're gonna kind of walk you through a little bit of how to create a client, how to create that match with a community sponsor group, how to run reports, and then to demo the actual sort of volunteer view. And we're going to add an activity as if we're a volunteer. This is how we add that activity, and then we'll talk a little bit about sort of timeline and next steps going forward. So go ahead and go to the next slide. And I know you all are here. You have been attending, hopefully, the Lunch and Learn sessions from a Refugee Welcome Collective, but just as just a quick level set. Who we are as Refugee Welcome Collective is that we are the community sponsorship technical assistance provider funded by PRM or the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, or the State Department. And what we do is that we provide in-depth training programs, technical assistance, a one-on-one or cohort or group technical assistance. And technical assistance, the word technical sometimes gets confused for some kind of technology, and I guess the app is one of those things, but really technical assistance just refers to any kind of assistance, any sorts of topics that come up when it comes to community sponsorship. So this can be things like creating a community sponsorship program, what are some best practices when creating, requirements for amounts of money that might be required, or in-kind donations that might be required, or levels of different commitment in terms of volunteer hours or things like that. How to determine what kinds of core services are delegated to the community sponsor group versus what staff might continue to do, or how to work in collaboration between staff and community groups. Those kinds of questions, those kinds of issues we're happy to be supportive for both local office users and for community sponsored groups and volunteers themselves. We create tools and resources. One of those resources is the Refugee Welcome Collective app, which we'll talk about in a second, and then knowledge sharing, which is stuff like this, the Lunch and Learn and others. And just if you haven't yet checked out our website, I encourage you to do so at refugeewelcome.org. Go ahead to the next slide, please. So what was the purpose of the Refugee Welcome Collective app? Its purpose really was to fill in the gap, to be able to figure out how do we, one, ensure that the services are being provided, that they're high quality services that are being provided, but also that we're able to log and keep track of all of the great work that community sponsors and volunteers are doing. So how do we show that those services are being provided in a high quality manner, and how do we able to report that total amount of in-kind donation or mileage that was used or things like that. So it really was to provide a user-friendly tool for sponsors, volunteers, and staff to track and document the delivery of service and activities by community sponsors and volunteers, including core services delivered, volunteer hours, financial contributions, in-kind donations, mileage, use of interpretation, and even an opportunity to write case notes. And we'll kind of show you how that works here in a little bit. Also to help organizations collect and track the data to show the contributions and impact of their community sponsorship and volunteer programs. I'll point to the website where the app sort of is located. You won't have access to it. You actually do need an invitation to be able to access it, but it lives at www.rwcapp.org. So just kind of you might be able to highlight it on your browser and make it one of your shortcuts or something like that. But you actually won't have access to it. You can't log in until you've been invited. So, but you're welcome to take a look at it. Okay, go ahead to the next screen, please. Wanted to talk about how there are sort of different levels. There is the sort of volunteer group leader level. There's the local office. So this is CWS Lancaster or Highest PA or any number of the local offices. The local office user basically has access to all of the information for their local office, anything associated with their local office. They have their volunteer names, volunteer contact information, the required funds raised, time required, time given, mileage, core services completed, in-kind donation, case notes, all of those. The volunteer or group leader also, is inputting information into the app, but they don't really have as much access to get that information out. They do have some. They can access, the time given and mileage and the core services completed, as well as funds raised, that kind of thing. And I'll show you what that looks like. But they're limited in terms of what they can see because they only have access to, their information as a group and the client that they are working with. Whereas in the local office user sees all of the clients that they've created and matched with every community sponsor group or volunteer that's been matched with that. We also sort of limited the amount of information that the national office, so if you are an affiliate office of CWS, for example, CWS will have access to information about your office, but it's limited in terms, so they can see the required funds, the funds raised, the time required, the time given, the mileage, those kind of like basic core information, but they don't have access to the case notes. They don't have access to your actual volunteer names and volunteer information. We did that because we know that while within CWS, for example, CWS might have CWS Lancaster office, They might also have Kentucky Refugee Ministries in Lexington, Kentucky, where they are, KRM is under CWS, but they're not sort of owned by CWS. So KRM might not want to share the specific details of like their actual volunteers and donors and things like that. So we just kind of created that little bit of a separation. But you certainly can share that with the national office. And like I said, the national office can see some of the big aggregated data. They can't see the specific information, but they can see some aggregated information. And then as well as the global admin, which is essentially us as Refugee Welcome Collective, where we see, again, not the specific details, but we see the aggregated data from all of the national offices. Go ahead to the next slide, please. Great, so this is what it looks like from the local office perspective. You can see that basically there's a tab that says volunteers, clients, sponsorship groups, and reports. Just want to show you what this looks like to create a client. So essentially this is a screenshot of mine where I've already created a bunch of clients, but for the first time you would click add a new client. So you'd add a new client and go ahead to the next slide, please. You're on sort of tab 1, which is the client information. You'd include the case number of the case size, is it 2, 3, 4, 5 people, the client date of arrival, the client country of origin, native language, additional language if that is relevant, as well as an option for if the client has a US tie. And so if yes, you can include the information for the US tie. Then you would click next and go ahead to the next slide, please. Then you're in tab 2, that client address, where you're including the name of the primary applicant, first name and last name, the address, and the city and state or territory, and the contact number. Go ahead to the next slide. Then still on that tab 2, there's an opportunity to add family members. So if this was a family of 4, you would add those additional family members. You can add another family member at any time. You can come back in and edit. If there's a new baby in the family, you can go ahead and add that. If someone passed away or something, you could delete that person from the family. You can edit as you see fit. So you'd add that and then you'd click next. Go ahead to the next one. Now you're on tab 3, which is the volunteer information. And it automatically inputs the National Resettlement Agency that you are associated with and your local office. Mine is Test Local Office, Lexington, Kentucky, as you can see there, but yours, it already auto-populates that for you. And then you are pairing, you pairing a client with a community sponsor? So we click yes, and then go ahead and click next. Go to the next slide, yeah. If it was an individual volunteer, so if you were matching this client with an individual volunteer, you could input that information here. As soon as you put in their email address and the client or the volunteer information, when you get to the end and you actually submit the client, the case, it will automatically send an invite to that individual volunteer that it's associated with, and they would be allowed to use the app. Go ahead to the next slide. If you are selecting that you are matching this client with a community sponsor group, you can choose either a co-sponsorship, a full co-sponsorship, or a support team. Then you can click whether the group has signed the MOU. You can actually upload that MOU as well when you click that. There is a question about how many core services is the group responsible for delivering. As a shortcut for full co-sponsorship, there's a minimum requirement of 8 core services. Is the group required to have some minimum cash or financial contribution? If not applicable, you can click the NA, or you can put $2,500 or $3,000, whatever it is. And then if there are any other required in-kind contributions or other activities like other wraparound services that you might require of them, you can include that there. You don't have to. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. So have all core members of the group receive training, and have they received background checks? There's also down here an opportunity while you're connecting a community sponsor group to a volunteer, you can also add an individual volunteer right here. So these are individual volunteers that are not associated with your community sponsor group. It's rare, but sometimes there might be an intern or a volunteer at your local office that just does like one thing for everyone. Maybe they drive everyone to the Social Security office, and that's Social Security Steve, and he always drives everyone to the Social Security office. This is where you would include them in this matching process as well. Go ahead and click next and go to the next one. So then another tab sort of pops up as the sponsorship information, and so then it asks you whether you're matching this client with an existing community sponsor group that you have already inputted into the system. So let's say this is year 2 of doing it, and First Presbyterian Church provided, they were a co-sponsor group for a family last year, and now they're ready to co-sponsor again. And so they already exist in a drop-down menu. You can just pull them up very easily and match them with a new client. If this is a new community sponsor group, you just click on the new. Let's go ahead to the next slide. And then you include the name of the group. Lady Gaga fans, that group is going to be a new co-sponsor group. The group leader information, you put in their email address and their name, and then just like earlier, as we said with an individual volunteer, after we create this client, it's going to send invites to these the community sponsor group leader, as well as all the members of the community sponsor group. It's going to send them an automatic invite. You write, or you input what the total number of group members is, and then it asks you what kind of group it is. Is it a faith community? Is it a university? Is it a social club? That kind of thing. Go ahead to the next slide. So let's say it's a community group. If you do actually click faith community, it might ask you a follow-up question. Is it a Christian church, Jewish synagogue, Catholic church? Is it an Islamic mosque? That kind of thing. And then the date of the match. And then this is where you add additional community members. So let's say you have a team of 10 people. You've got the group leader, and then you include each one of the members of the group here. And all you need is their name and their email address. Click next. And then finally, you have an opportunity to review. Now, if you are missing something that was required, like the total time commitment, and you didn't put anything there, it'll show up as like a little red dot or little red asterisk, and one of them will be missing. As you scroll down, go ahead to the next slide. I think it shows this. Yeah, you would just kind of keep sliding, scrolling down until you see either previous or submit. Now, if it says submit, it means that you don't have any errors and you're good to go. You can go ahead and hit submit. If you do have an error or two, that submit button won't exist, and you'll have to hit previous. You'll go back, and then you'll find the red, error, fix it, keep going next till you get to the submit button, and then click submit. Go ahead. And then that's it. Then you've created the client in the system. You've matched them with a community sponsored group, and it has the system has already automatically sent out an invitation to your volunteers and community sponsor members for them to log in, and then I'll show you here a demo of what that looks like for them. But I also want to talk about reports, and so this is as a local office staff member, as the community sponsored developer or volunteer coordinator or community engagement staff, or the case manager or even the site director. You'd have access to these local office reports. The local office report includes the count of services, which is also filterable by core services. So there's a total list of services that may be provided. So airport arrival, going to apply for SNAP benefits, signing up for an English language program or employment, things like that. But some are also, in addition, additional wraparound services that might not necessarily be considered a core service, but they're still important services that are being provided. So you can filter them by if you just want to look at core services, or if you want to look at total amount of services, total time spent. And this is like, as you're inputting, we as a group did the apartment setup, and there were 10 of us, and we all took 2 hours of doing it. So there were 20 hours total of the service that was provided. It's keeping track of that in total. The total financial contributions, both cash and in kind, and I'll show you what that looks like. Mileage, time committed in terms of months, financial commitment required, that kind of thing. And it's all filterable as well by the sponsorship type, the group type, the date of arrival, things like that. Then there's also a case note summary report that can be pulled, where the local office can pull what that looks like, the services delivered, the dates of the services, and the specific case notes that the user did. And so you can pull that. It's all uploadable as an Excel spreadsheet, which you can copy and paste or manipulate that spreadsheet into a possible upload into whatever other system that you have, like Iris or any other sort of case management systems that you have. Go ahead to the next slide. So this is what it looks like. This is the community sponsorship and volunteer report overview. It is the overview tab, and it's got some pretty cool charts, some pie charts and bar graphs and things like that show you, how many services were provided, what kind of services were provided, or services based on whether it was from a co-sponsor group or a support team or individual volunteers, things like that. And again, it's filterable by that left side. When you get into it, you can really kind of play with it and see. And then go to the next one. The next tab is the detailed tab, and that really is like the bulk of all of the information. And that is where that sort of orange line at the bottom where some of the numbers get totaled. And so each line is a client that you've matched with a community sponsor group, and then at the bottom you have total amount of funds raised, total amount of in-kind, total amount of hours spent, volunteer hours, that kind of thing. And again, this report is can be uploaded into an Excel spreadsheet and be manipulated in whatever way you need it to, and as well it's filterable as well. Go ahead to the next slide. Gotcha. Yeah, that's the details as well. Go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so now I'd like to go ahead and demo the app sort of from the volunteer perspective. So Grace, who's kind of working in the back here, is going to make me a presenter, and hopefully I'll be able to share my screen appropriately. Grace, just let me know.
Just 1 second. There you go.
Great. Okay. All right, and Brianne, can you just let me know, did that work? Are you able to see the app now?
Yes, I see. Welcome, Derek, testing.
Great. Okay, so this is what it looks like as a volunteer, and as you can see, I've created a couple of, or I'm associated with a couple of different clients. I'm going to move my view just a little bit. There you go. Okay. And so, you as a volunteer, you might only be associated with one client, but this is a test one, so I've kind of created a couple different ones, but you can view activities, and so this is with a client that's already had some activities inputted. Just want to kind of show you this. Is pretty cool. There you go. This is a list of kind of all the activities that have been done. If you click this group progress, this shows all of the services that have been provided, who did it, and when they were provided. So application for SNAP benefits, the filing their AR-11, change of address, transportation. So this is kind of a list of all the things that have been created for this client. There's some different members of the group have done different activities. They'll show up like that with the date that they were completed. So I just want to, that sort of group progress report is a really neat button that allows you to look at, with that client, all of the activities, who did it, and at what time. But let's go ahead and show you what it looks like to, let's go back. For Robert Frost here, we will go ahead and add an activity. And so as you hit add activity, it will automatically have today's date, and it will automatically have the client that you're inputting for. And unfortunately, I have to keep moving the little window for GoToWebinar here. So give me just a second. But then you click next. Okay, then the service activities show up, and you have sort of pre-arrival, arrival, like during the full service activities, and then the wraparound services. They're all listed. Actually, the local offices are 8, so this is a total list, but and we're still sort of in beta mode, but one of the changes that are coming really soon is for the local office to determine which of the core services they allow their volunteers and community sponsors to do. So they'll be able to turn on and off the different possible core services, because perhaps at their local office, trying to have a volunteer or co-sponsor group do a SNAP benefit application is just too much in their area. They already have it set up as a good system with their staff, and so they want to keep that in-house. So they basically can turn off that service so that the volunteers don't get confused that they're supposed to do that or anything like that. And so, but you can choose. So you can choose from the total ones that you want to do, including securing decent, safe housing, providing furniture and household items, something like that. But let's go to, let's say we've already done the pre-arrival stuff. Let's say we've already done some arrival stuff, like met at the airport, provided food and food allowance, groceries, that kind of thing. Let's say we're kind of in the thick of it, again, maybe in the first month or so. And let's say we're gonna do the second home visit on, at 30 days. Now, actually, another update that's coming very soon is that instead of just saying 30 days, 30 calendar days, it'll actually say a specific date based on the date of arrival. So if they arrived, let's say August 19th, and now it's September 19th, it will say this is due by September 19th, right? So that's kind of a cool feature. You can do multiple ones. You don't have to just do one service. You can do actually, the system allows you to do as many as you want, but we recommend that you stick to doing like 3 or less at a time. It starts to get too complicated to do too many inputs. It also means that you're not really, you're waiting too long to then go back in and log what you did. But it's totally fine to, do some services over the weekend, and then come Monday or Tuesday, you write the 2 or 3 logs that you provided. So let's just do 2. Let's say we're doing the second home visit and the school enrollment. And then, like I said, there are also additional wraparound services like tutoring, mentorship, stuff like that can also be added, but let's click next. And then this second home visit comes up, and we can do case notes. We can say whether interpretation was provided, in person, virtual, or phone, how long it took. So let's say it took 2 hours and 30 minutes. Sorry, again, if this is a little clunky, I've got to move kind of some things around as I'm looking at stuff differently on my screen. But the date that the activity was completed, let's say this was completed yesterday, Sunday. Was an in-kind donation made? Let's say yes, and you can add as many items as you would like. Let's say we bought now that it's barely starting to get a little cooler, we bought a jacket. It's worth $100. You can actually upload a receipt here. So, if the community sponsor group or volunteer took the client to Walmart to go buy that jacket, you can actually take a picture and upload that receipt. So that's an option. Was transportation provided? Or we're actually going to change that to say, was there mileage that you need to report? Because sometimes, even though you don't provide the transportation, you may still need to report mileage. Let's say yes. Okay, and then you can do the school enrollment as well. And our website, for example, if you don't already, as a local office, aren't providing some sort of guidance on what makes a good case note and things like that, we have some good guidance on that, and even some templates that volunteers and co-sponsor groups can use on our website. But hopefully you, as a local office, have that kind of stuff. Was interpretation used? Let's say no. How many hours? This took 1 hour and 15 minutes. Again, sorry, it's gonna take just a second to move my stuff around. Let's say this was actually completed on Friday of last week. Okay, was an in-kind donation made? Say yes. School supplies. And you can be as detailed or general as guided by your local office. If you want to say, I want you, as a local office, I want you to list out every single thing, or if it's okay to say school supplies and kind of, do a whole, number like that, or you can list out individual. You can guide your volunteers, or you can be guided by your local office in whatever sort of policies and processes work best. And let's say, was transportation provided? Let's say no. We'll go to next. And then with each entry like this, there's always an opportunity to include a total financial donation made. So obviously something like secured housing or doing the housing setup, that might be the time when, if there was a big chunk of donation made towards the security deposit and 3 months rent or something like that, then that's really the one that you would do. You would enter that in. But sometimes just throughout, the community sponsored group may provide some sort of cash financial donation. Who knows? Let's say yes, and let's say $500. You can add any other details, saving up for a vehicle, something like that. And you can include that. Like I said, you know, the big chunk of the financial donation that perhaps is going towards security deposit and rent, maybe you did that already before. But there's just, and this is how you would do it for that one. You would put it here at $3,000 or whatever it is. But they have an opportunity to upload that at other times as well. Click next. This is your, again, review. So if there was some kind of a problem, something missing, you wouldn't be allowed to hit submit. It would, you know, have like an error message or a red asterisk. But since you have the submit button, it looks like everything is good. Then you've submitted that, and then you can, you know, go ahead and view that activities. You can actually go back in and edit. So let's say someone put that it took 10 hours when they meant 1 hour, something like that. They can go back in and edit, or you as a local office user actually can go into those activities and edit if you needed to, as opposed to trying to track down someone if there's like a clear, you know, obvious mistake and something like that. Or like I said, you can use this group progress that really kind of clarifies the date, the who did it, and that kind of as a total running tab. Also, just want to show you real quick the reports for the group leader. The group leader report is limited, but it does have some important information that we thought might be useful to a group leader, you know, to take back to their board of directors of their organization, or to, you know, to somebody, to the board of the church or whatever it is, to be able to say things like, you know, this was the total amount of services that we provided, the total amount of volunteer hours, the total amount of financial and in-kind contribution. That might be like a good way for them to be able to pull that information and give that to someone who may need it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then I'm gonna go back to making Grace
the presenter.
The presenter. Let's see, what did I do there? 1 second.
And while you're doing that, Derek, is it okay if we start with Q&A?
Please.
Okay. So we will now begin answering any questions that you all would like to submit or that you all have submitted during today's presentation. As a reminder, you can still go ahead and submit those questions, and we'll let Derek review this information also in a moment. But if you want to go ahead and submit those questions now, and actually, Derek, while they're submitting their questions, do you want to run through this for us?
Yeah, just wanted to say kind of, you know, what the timeline and sort of next steps are. So the app, we're hoping will be fully open and available to everyone, to the public, by fiscal year 23, which is just in a couple of weeks, October 1st. We are just waiting on right now for the sort of legal department to give us sort of the go ahead with the licensing agreement and sort of general agreement with the national offices for everyone to use. So the national agency will sign the agreement. So that's your national affiliate office: HIAS, CWS, World Relief, USCRI, IRC, USCCB, LIRS, all of them, EMM. Did I miss anyone? Maybe, I apologize if I did. I think I named everyone, but if I missed anyone, sorry about that. The national RA staff then creates the local office and the local users. So when they create the local office, and I'll help them through that process, and create the local users, it'll automatically send you as local staff that invitation. And then the local office users, you go in and create the clients, and I can provide technical assistance for that. But we also have like a training manual and stuff like that you can look at. It's pretty easy to follow, honestly. And the community sponsor groups and volunteers in the app, and then it creates those matches and it sends out the invitations. And then And then the volunteers receive invites via email, and they can start using that. So so that's kind of that's what that looks like. It usually we anticipate a couple of weeks sort of process from that, but we're waiting on the legal department to finish, you know, then putting finishing touches on those agreements. Go ahead to the next slide if there's, I think that's just the last one, and then there's questions.
Yeah. So we do have some questions for you. The first one you just answered, which is when will it be available, which the process can start early October. Let me see. One question, does the local office need to be a resettlement agency or affiliated with a resettlement agency, or can they be a community-based organization?
That's a great question. So it was envisioned that yes, you do, you know, that right now it's set up to be associated with one of the national resettlement agencies. However, we do want to expand it to everyone and some other possibilities, including, you know, potentially, you know, other sort of private sponsorship or other things, community-based organizations. So please reach out to me, and we'll walk through how to figure it out and how to make it work for that. We do want to be able to expand to that. I know we will figure out how to make it work. So yeah, if you could please reach out to me directly. We're still, just like I said, in the beta sort of spot. So we're still sort of making changes and adjustments. So yes, please reach out to me, and I know my email address will be in follow-up emails to everyone.
Great. A general question. So this app, can a volunteer download it to their phone, or is it available via mobile browser, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it lives kind of as a website essentially that you have access to when you're invited. So you don't have to download it onto your phone, but it is mobile friendly. It's been formatted that way. So yes, you can access it on your laptop. You can access it, you know, on a tablet. You can access it on your phone. I would say most volunteers are probably going to use their phone most of the time, but not necessarily always. They can certainly just go home and do it on their laptop or, you know, PC. And I would say most local office staff will probably just be doing it on their computer, but they certainly can do it on their phone to access that kind of stuff.
Great. Let's see. Is there any interoperability besides Excel download? Can we change? Let's see. I guess that's the one. I guess is that between like different databases? Do you think, Derek?
Yeah. So that is definitely something that you know, we are considering and want to do, is to basically be able to you know, sync with other databases, with other you know, case management software and other things like that. But that's probably phase 3 sort of things that will be coming eventually. But for the time being, an Excel spreadsheet allows you to upload with most things in bulk potentially, or at very least you have access to just kind of copy and paste some things. And you can also obviously manipulate it with those Excel spreadsheets. It's the easiest, kind of fastest way to do it. But yes, we in the future for sure, we are looking at, you know, what other programs do we want to be able to sync with in a, you know, but that takes additional resources that we're just not there yet. But we hope to do that further on down the line.
Great. And then how do you get invited to use it? I guess either as a volunteer or as a local staff person.
Right. So your local, okay, if you're a volunteer, it's because you're volunteering or you're a community sponsored group that is associated with a local office, right? So you've already signed your MOU, you've already been talking with the local office about, you know, what you're doing. And when they create the client in the system, then it will automatically send that volunteer, the group leader, or members of that community sponsored group invites. If you are a local office user, you will receive that invite when your national office has created you as a local office in the system. So, so if you're a local office and you want to participate in this, you want to be able to use this software, then all you have to do is reach out to your community sponsor, staff, national headquarters staff, or you can reach out to me directly too, and I can help you connect with them or make sure that that's a possibility. Again, like I said, we are just waiting on the last sort of final bits of the agreement, but from the legal department, so that those national offices can go ahead and sign that agreement, and then they can create those local offices. But if you just want to say, basically, if you want to raise your hand and say, we would like to use this as soon as it's available, let your national office, community sponsorship headquarters know. Let me know. I can communicate that with them as well. Yeah, that's really the best way to do it.
Great. I'm going to throw out one or two more in the weeds questions, which you can answer
Sure.
or not, Derek. And then we'll get back to some other ones. Let's see. One is, can we change drop-down choices or add custom fields? Yeah. And then another question, what does the receipt admin interface look like? Which I'm not sure if that's referring to like the receipts that you're uploading or if that's a different. But yeah, wanted to know if we can change drop-down choices or add custom fields. And then what does receipt admin interface look like? So,
okay, it's a good question. There is for each of the if you're talking about the activities, for example, right? If the drop-down menus to the activities that are completed, there is other, and they can write in one if you want. You can, as the local office, you can turn on and off. And it's basically a master list. It is all of the possible services that can be provided according to the cooperative agreement, including ones that can be done in active collaboration. But not all offices use that sort of full total list. They may only, they may restrict it. So, but there is also an other for each one of those categories: pre-arrival, arrival. So, and especially with like wraparound services, for example. So there's always an added one if you want to keep it, that they can put that in. That really is the only drop down sort of thing that is changeable. But so if you want to reach out to me and you have a specific thing that you want to be editable, or you have a question about how would that work, or what information you think you would like to add to it, we can talk about it specifically, and I can kind of dive in and see whether or not we do what it is that you want it to do, or if you have any questions about some sort of limitation or something like that. But I think you'll find that you don't need that. But there are some other things that we're working on that are adjusted. Like, for example, there will be an added tag for the budget or grant that is associated with that client. So if they're an R&P client, if they're a matching grant client, if they're some other ones like that, there are opportunities to tag them with that so that you can see that. So anyway, I would just say if you have like real specific questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to answer questions or walk you through it and have kind of a TA session with you about any particular things that you might want to edit or change, and we'll see what we can do, or whether it's something that we feel like needs to be added to further updates. What was the other question? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Let's see. It was about what does receipt admin interface look like? And I've got more questions for you too, if you want to do that one.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm not sure I understand what's being asked there. So if there's a way for them to clarify that would be helpful. Or like I said, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have like a more in-depth conversation on like sort of technical issues.
Yeah, or feel free to type in via the questions tab.
Yeah.
Let's see. Somebody was curious, is there a way to kind of get in and explore the app as if they're trying to decide if they want to participate?
Yeah, let me know. Just reach out to me directly, and I can try to give you sort of an invite to the app in development. So not the production one, but I can give you kind of access to that, and should be able to do that.
Perfect. Let's see. And then one last question. What feedback are other local offices already using this? What kind of like positives and negatives have you heard?
Yeah, there are a couple that have sort of tested and used sort of as sort of pilot and some feedback. I mean, generally, as also we've been sort of demoing this for other organizations and local offices and things, the feedback has been positive. Feedback really has been that they can see how valuable this would be for them compared to other processes that they've tried. It's nice, it's nice that this was created with community sponsorship in mind. There certainly are like other volunteer type tracking systems and things, and those have some benefits, but some of the limitations is that they aren't necessarily geared towards community sponsorship. This was created solely with community sponsorship in mind from people with experience in community sponsorship. There are certainly some things, some additional features and things that people have asked for, like being able to sync up with other case management software, and so that's definitely something that, as additional resources become available, we'll continue to do that. But they've already sort of added their insight about things like being able to turn on and off the different services that are provided, because they don't want to, they want to make sure that it's clear, and they don't want to confuse any volunteers or community sponsor group members by having core services that their office doesn't really want them to do as an available thing. So that was something that was basically added as feedback was coming in about sort of what they would like. So yeah, but overall it's been positive. It's been really exciting to see people see the benefit of this and see how it can save them time, and can really, those reports, I think especially local offices and certainly national offices too appreciate what that can do in terms of telling the overall story, not just qualitatively but quantitatively, the specifics of how many hours were spent, how much money was spent, and then also to be able to add the qualitative stuff with quotes and things like that from other sources. You get a much better picture of what is actually happening.
Yeah, and I feel like even just having that like secure vehicle to transmit some of this information and see what your other teammates have done, and it's all more secure than say like a Google spreadsheet or something like that, is a great advantage as well. I think that we've hit most of the questions. Thanks again, Derek, for presenting today, and thank you to everyone for attending today's Lunch and Learn as well. You'll receive a follow-up email you'll receive a follow-up email with a recording of today's webinar. Also, we'd like to hear from you. We ask that you take a moment right now to follow the link. Grace is going to drop it into the chat, just to provide feedback on today's Lunch and Learn and to suggest topics for future Lunch and Learns. We look forward to hearing from you. And on behalf of Refugee Welcome Collective, thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy using the app in the future, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day today. Thank you so much, and thank you, Derek.
Thanks, Brianne. Thanks, everyone, for the great questions.